want to start over. Second time I've pressed the record button. This is Bettina Essert. I am here teaching on July 22nd, 2022, offering ceremony in honor of Mary Magdalene, who was the wife of Yeshua, his co-teacher. They taught together in their ministry, and the mother of his child, and a high priestess of Isis, and also an Essene and a Tantrika, who, due to the advent of the extreme patriarchy brought in by the early Christians and the early Catholic Church, was almost cleansed from the record. Her teachings and the Gospels that mention her were not included in the canon when King James canonized the King James Version of the Bible, which is the most used and most used for translations into modern day language version of the Christian Bible. So I'm going to read a passage from the Magdalene manuscript, The Alchemies of Horus and the Sex Magic of Isis, written by Tom Kenyon and Judy Sion. And it's from chapter 5. It is chapter 5. The church would have you believe I was a whore, but I tell you now that the church is the whore. For she would have you believe that woman is tainted and that the sexual passions between a man and a woman are evil. Yet it is here, in the magnetics of passion, that the womb of ascension is created. The secret of secrets was known by all initiates of Isis, and yet I had never imagined that I would be the one to bring it into fullest expression in union with such a one as Yeshua. For me, this journey is of my spirit and heart. But for those who wish to know the physical journey, after Yeshua's crucifixion, I and his mother, Mary, Joseph of Arimathea, his 12-year-old son named Aaron, and 2 other young women set off from northern Egypt. Our course took us ironically east before we could turn westward, and we had to stop for provisions along the way, as our boat was very small. Our path took us to Malta and the tiny island of Udish, from there to Sardinia and to the tip of what is now the Cinque Terre, finally landing at Saintes Maries de la Mer and making our trek northward through Rennes-le-Château into northern France and across the Channel into what is now England. We settled in Glastonbury for several years until Sarah was 12. Upon her 12th birthday, we set off for the place among the reeds where we had landed. There, as close to Egypt as was safe for us to go, I initiated my daughter into the cult of Isis and bathed her in the waters of the Mediterranean in accordance with the teachings I had been given. We then returned to Glastonbury until Yeshua's and my daughter, Sarah, wedded at age 16. She married into a well-known family whose heirs became the Templars, although at that time the Templar Knights did not exist. The family bloodline through Sarah would be carried into the Templars themselves. When Sarah was married and secure in her new life, I headed north for Wales and lived in a small stone cottage by the sea for the rest of my days. Behind my cottage, there was a stream that came out of the hill, and I would sit there many days. For there was a time when this stream split in 2, and the 2 streams followed each other, and then one veered off to the left and one to the right. And I would sit there in between them, thinking about the stream of my life and the stream of Yeshua's, how for a while our lives flowed together and then parted. So I would like to go ahead and open the ceremony. So if you will, get your water and your candle and your oil and bring them close. So the first thing I want to invite you to do is to light your candle. And I have this beautiful beeswax candle that's made in Virginia from Virginia bees, and it's in the shape of a rose, which is sacred to the Magdalene. So I'll light my candle. I'll place this on my altar in a minute. And after you light your candle, I invite you to take your oil. I have some essential oil of spikenard. It is pretty pungent, not for everyone. I happen to love it. This is the oil that Mary Magdalene used to anoint her husband on their wedding night. Just put a drop or two into your palm. And first, anoint your third eye. And then anoint the back of your skull, your occiput, intentionally connecting the places where you've anointed your head through your pineal gland, activating, turning on, decalcifying your pineal gland. And then your heart and your high heart, possibly down to your sternum where your soul seed resides. Opening your heart, creating the space for love, compassion, self-love, self-compassion. And then if you are able, I invite you to anoint your womb. And if you can't reach your belly through your clothing, you can always just hold your hand there without the oil and allow the vibration to anoint you. And then if you would care to, you may also want to anoint your yoni. Be careful, depending what kind of oil you have here. If you're going to anoint, you might want to just focus on your mons and not go to where the more tender skin is. But giving love to this often disowned part of your body. And then rub your hands together, distributing what's left of your oil. And your hands to your face and inhale deeply a few times, which will also activate your pineal gland. Bringing the sacredness of this oil and of this anointing into your body using the breath, where it will be absorbed into your bloodstream and flow throughout you, your oxygen and your cells. And lastly, depending on what you did with the oil, you can choose which finger to use here. Take your water and run your finger around the rim of the glass 4 times, opening the energy. You're going clockwise here. And then chanting into the water, either Mary Magdalene or Magdalena, whichever you prefer. Magdalena. And you'll want to do this 4 times as well. Magdalena, Magdalena, Magdalena. And so it is. And now just take a sip of the water and take that energy and that vibration into your body. Wow. I had not planned on chugging my whole glass of water, but I just did. Okay, I put my candle on my altar. I'll be right back. So I just want to invite you into prayer, whatever you choose to call it, a calling in of energies. On this day, I honor the soul spirit, the being who was known as, who is now known as Mary Magdalene, the being who was the wife of the Christ, of Yeshua, the mother of their child, the woman whose soul essence has waited 2,000 years to be called back into honoring, who has been rising like a flame for the last many years, who's present in my life as counselor, spirit guide, possibly as ancestor, ancestress. Thank you for your teachings of love, passion, of patience, of how to live a life of peace and beauty in the midst of the judgments of so many who don't understand your way of being in the world, our way of being in the world, the ways of the woman who can open bodies without penetrating them, the way of the somatic healer, the hands-on healer, the vibrational healer, the sound healer, the ways of the midwife, the herbalist, those who were called witches, those who are reclaiming the title of witch now. All of this, all of this, all of this. This is my offering in your name, in her name. Holy erotic resonance. Aho, blessed be, and so it is. So if you have questions or comments, if you would type them into the chat box and I will answer them at the end, that would be amazing. I have notes that I'm going to be looking down at so that I don't leave out anything that I feel is important. There are those who access the lineage of Yeshua and Magdalene through many different channels. Some of that is through their work. Excuse me, those who are the followers of their teachings, whether of the Magdalene or of Yeshua. There are those of blood lineage, which is extremely difficult to accurately trace. The rumor is the story that is deeply threaded through generations of this lineage is that the name Sinclair or Saint Clair is a name that is connected to their lineage. In particular, women who are very small with red hair are seen to mirror the image of Mary Magdalene, and that tends in many cases to lead credence or lend credence to the story. However, with the vagaries of DNA, that's no guarantee. I will say that I do have many very small red-haired women in my family. My father's mother was the source of that for my dad's generation and for mine and for the next one. There's a lineage of soul. This is just a soul connection. It's something you know. When you know, you know. And there's no other questions that need to be asked. If you have that soul connection, you have it. That's all. And the heart connection, which is feeling a link from your heart to the teachings that they shared, and the true teachings, the words specifically that have been handed down, the history, but not the dogma. A heart connection is something you know because you feel the link. For me, Mary Magdalene became a guide when I underwent my training in the Magdalene Mysteries, a priestess mystery school, where I was brought into her teachings through sex, power, and money. Items that are sacred to her: the red rose, spikenard, the alabaster jar, and the egg, especially the red dyed egg. You will see image after image after image of her with this. Frequently also, you'll see her with a skull, which is meant to represent Christ after the crucifixion, after he was gone. But if he ascended bodily, there wouldn't have been a skull. So I don't quite get that one. I don't necessarily include it in my own iconography for her. Yeshua and Miriam, we don't really know what her actual name was. Studied Tantra in India together. She also traveled to Egypt and was young when she did this. This was before her meeting with and marriage to Yeshua, was in Egypt and became a priestess of Isis and stayed there and studied many years. And so was educated also in the alchemies of Horus and the sex magic of Isis. When she met Yeshua, they were married. They then traveled to India and studied with yogis there and became yogic masters, which also means that they studied the various essences of Tantra: black, white, red, pink. They were masters of sacred union, of the Hieros Gamos, of sacred union within the self, and the sacred union with the divine beloved or the other. So I can't remember if I said this on this recording or if I said it before I started the recording, but the King James Version of the Bible was canonized by King James of England, who was the successor to Queen Elizabeth I. He was a king of Scotland before that. He canonized the King James Version of the Bible in 1611 with Pope Paul V, whose birth name was Camillo Borghese. They eliminated the Gnostic texts from the Christian canon, which includes the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, the Gospel of Thomas, and many others, and only kept the books that they approved. I feel it's also important to point out that King James was the one who started the witch burning frenzy. He began it, and if you're in my priestess group and watch the Burning Times, you will know this. He started it with Galis Duncan in Scotland, and she was the first one, and it caught on and became a mad frenzy. So many women were killed for being witches, which means they were healers. It was a power that women had, and any power that women had was terrifying to these tiny little men. And so they sought to take it away by creating fear. And they succeeded, and we still experience the sphere today, the sphere of our power, men's sphere of our power, through our own hatred of our bodies, of our ability to create life, and not only through pregnancy, but through healing in all the ways that are available to us. Mary Magdalene was also a Murafor, which means that she carried the mysteries of anointing with sacred oils. She was one of 3 people known to have bodily ascended into heaven. The first was the Mother Mary, the second was Yeshua, and the third was Mary Magdalene. In the New Testament, anyway. I don't know that much about the Old Testament. It seems to be like maybe Job or somebody else got carried off to, but I don't remember. Speaking of being a Murafor and being the wife of Yeshua, the evidence that stands out in my mind for that is in the mainstream version of the Bible are these: the wedding at Cana, where a woman anoints Yeshua and cries on his feet and dries his feet with her hair, all of those things. This is done for the groom by the bride at weddings. This was a ceremony of the Essenes. Excuse me, I don't know if this COVID cough is ever going to go away. It's been a while, like a month. And then the being at his feet when he was crucified with his mother and his cousin. Only his wife would have been there, not a whore camp follower, his wife. The next thing is the anointing of his body with the sacred oils after the crucifixion. Again, mother, wife, cousin, his family anointed his body. Of course they did. Funerary traditions are pretty specific. Also, she was a Murafor, as was Mother Mary, and they were educated in the ways of anointing a body. And they knew that he was going to rise. They knew that he wasn't dead. It was important that they be there to treat his body in such a way as to preserve life. And the last thing is, who but a wife would go to check on a dead man in his tomb? She was there when he rose. She was the first one to see him. He showed himself to her first. And he told her not to touch him because his body was not yet stabilized. His light body had not yet stabilized in his physical body, and he couldn't, if she were to touch him, then he would have just kind of died maybe, or vaporized something. But yeah, those are the things that point the way for those who are skeptical of that. As far as the ministry goes, she was patron, she was a teacher, she was a wealthy woman in her own right, and she and other patrons funded their ministry. And she taught with him. When they baptized people after the death of John the Baptist, she baptized the women and Yeshua baptized the men. It was not acceptable for men to touch women in that way, or for women to touch men in that way. And so they each did their part. There's a lot of talk in spiritual circles today about embodiment and dissociation and that sort of thing. And if you consider anthropologically what life was like in Israel in the year 30, they were pretty embodied. They walked or rode a donkey everywhere they went. They didn't have cell phones or television. They didn't have access to very many books. Scrolls were written by hand and extremely expensive. Normal people did not have access to these. There was no other option but to live a deeply embodied life, because that's what living was at that time. Disembodiment is what has happened to us now. In order to protect our nervous systems, we have to dissociate sometimes, because our lives are so frantic, so frenetic, so pressurized in ways that don't make sense and aren't necessary or healthy for our survival. We need to have our needs for shelter, food, clothing, etc. met. And beyond that, things can get really harder rather than easier. Excuse me. Many times when I do a grounding meditation, a leading in for my priestess circles, I'll have us all connect with the Earth Star and the Sky Star. And I'm pointing down, but you can only see this hand going up. We're going both ways though. I imagine sometimes the Magdalene and the Christ, Mary and Jesus, with her as the deeply embodied primal feminine, embodying the chaos and the darkness and the fecundity that comes with that moist, dark space where everything grows. Babies, puppies, seeds, rhizomes, whatever. Everything opens in the darkness. And our legends tell us that this is the underworld. Sorry, there's a Okay. There's a huge U-Haul pulling up out front. I don't know why. And I honestly think that this is the origin of hell and the underworld being a bad place, rather than being the place where all life forms. As vulva-bodied people, man or woman, you experience the blood mysteries, birth, menarche, the potentiality of giving birth, menopause, and death. And not everyone has access to that. She was a woman of abundance. She was discriminating. Excuse me. Wealthy. And she chose this ministry. She chose to walk out of her home and to put her sandals on and walk down the dusty path for hundreds and thousands of miles to spread the word. She made this decision knowing what she was looking at, and her call to this was something she felt compelled to answer. There are many of us now who feel compelled to live lives of the Spirit, lives in which we are engaged with spiritual practice, in which we walk the path of the priestess, the path of the Magdalene priestess, perhaps. And just know that this does not mean you have to be poor. This does not mean you have to be a prostitute just because the church tried to tell you she was one for so long. And there's nothing wrong with sex work, nothing at all. If that's what you're doing for a living, I'm not here to say that's bad or wrong. I fully am behind that being decriminalized. However, there's a cultural wound around this that involves judgment of it, and also making this the worst aspersion we can cast at a woman. You're a whore. So fucking what? You know? One of the things that sex workers do, the really good ones, is they heal the people they work with. I know tantrikas who can lay their hand on someone's heart and immediately know what that person needs. There were the sexual priestesses who worked in the temples where soldiers coming home from war came before they went home to their wives to be cleansed of the horrors of war. They were taken in, bathed tenderly, anointed with oils, tended to, prayed over, massaged, wafted with smoke medicine, and made love to. And these sexual priestesses intentionally took out, cleansed these men of the war wound. And there are still people out there doing this beautiful work. one of the benefits of the sex magic, tantra, whatever your word for it is the ability to run full life force energy, full Shakti, to, in terms of Native Americans, be the hollow bone where your Sushumna, your energy channel from your crown to your root, is open and free of adhesions and stopping, like places where you're clogged. And so your full life force energy can run up and down from Earth star to sky star and back and forth. And you're feeling this full flow of Shakti energy moving through your body. You feel passionate and engaged and filled with life force and vibrance. And if you've felt it and you're not feeling it as much now, maybe this is calling attention to that for you so that you can begin to work on it. I know for me, I'm feeling pretty low life force at this time. I've been doing a really intense course of study. I had COVID in June. I traveled a lot and I'm tired. And I'm really, really ready to reconnect with my Shakti. This full life force energy, this full flow of Shakti is also the ability to run pure, unadulterated, unattached love through your body, through your heart, through your womb. And we're all done shaming that, right? We're done. No more shaming of sexuality, of sensuality, of your healing powers, of your beautiful body, of your beautiful face, of your womb, of your heart, of your pussy, of your being a woman, even if you don't have a pussy. No more shaming of that. No more. We are here to stand up, to be seen, to be heard, to walk the path of the priestess, of the Magdalene, rooted, open, embodied, grounded, present, soft, open, yielding. Having said that, I also want to say that loving does not mean putting up with someone's bullshit. You can love and be soft and open and have really good boundaries. So let's not confuse softness with being a doormat. Oh, stop. What else do I want to say? I want to invite you to just sit back and breathe that in. The potential for full self-acceptance. And breathe into your Jed, D-J-E-D, your central nerve channel that runs from your root to your crown. Each of your chakras, each of your elemental roses run through. Allow yourself to become aware of your root, an intention that it's spiraling clockwise and open appropriately. And then bringing your awareness up to your sacral, spiraling open and clockwise appropriately, perfectly in balance and in tune. And then up to your solar plexus, spiraling open beautifully, appropriately. And then your heart, open, perfect. And your throat, one of the most traumatized for those of us who are women. Open appropriately, spiraling clockwise, powerful. Don't be afraid to cough or clear your throat. And your third eye, open, spiraling. And your crown, open, spiraling clockwise. And now I'm going to invite you to drop your awareness down to your root and into the earth, and to just breathe the energy up through and out through your crown. So you're breathing in through your perineum and exhaling through your crown. And as you do that, breathe in and then squeeze your root. For men, that'll feel like tightening your perineum. For women, that'll feel like squeezing your high, like your cervix area, and then squeezing in at your heart, your chest, tucking your chin, crossing your eyes to look up at your third eye, and then breathing out through your crown. In through your root, tighten your chest, tuck your chin, cross your eyes and look at your third eye, take a sniff, and breathe out and relax. 2 more times. Breathe in, tighten your root, tuck your chest, tuck your chin, cross your eyes and look at your third eye, take a sniff. Breathe out through your crown. When you're ready, hold it for as long as you can. Let's do it one more time because I forgot the hold it instruction. Breathe in, squeeze, squeeze, tuck your chin, cross your eyes, snip in, hold it. Breathe out when you're ready. This also activates your pineal and it helps move the energy through your body. You can also breathe down from your crown and out through your root. Just 2 breathing exercises. I'm not going to do the second one, but there are 2 things that you can do to help clear your channel and open you up to more life force energy. flowing through you. I have another thing that I want to read, but I'm going to see if I can find it because it's possible that I won't be able to. Always remember these things, my dear. Remember, you have free will. Remember, you are light, and light you shall remain. Remember, there is no right or wrong, only divine truth. Remember that if you ask, you shall receive. Remember. It's from I Remember Union by Flo Aviella Magdalena. You are light, and light you shall remain. You are light, and light you shall remain. You are light, and light you shall remain. Yeah. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here with me, Shelley. I appreciate it. It's so much better talking to a person than talking into the void. I think that's it. I'm going to close, and because the recording didn't start when I played the sound healing at the beginning, I'm going to redo that now at the end for those who might enjoy having it as an integration. So I won't be sad if you go, if you need to go. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I wonder what my cats do sometimes. My bowls are all full of hair, of cat hair. And I cleaned them out yesterday. With the sound of these bowls, allow yourself to just drop in, to integrate the teachings, to integrate the ceremony, to integrate any healing, transmissions, divine upgrades you may have received. in her honor. Mary Magdalene.